What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Tower of Babel and how it ties in with the if that sounds interesting. Hey, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you want already so you can be notified when I upload new videos. The story of the Tower of Babel appears in the book of Genesis, chapter 11 verses 1 to 9, and goes a little something like this. Now the whole world had one language and everyone understood each other. Some scholars believe that the creation of different languages during the incident of the Tower of Babel may have been an attempt by God to halt the construction of the tower, or perhaps even a punishment for humanity. As hubris, they believe that all humans descended from Adam and Eve, and that the original language was Hebrew. After the confusion of languages at the Tower of Babel, people migrated throughout the earth, eventually spreading to every nation, and eventually developing different languages. However, the biblical account of the Tower of Babel is likely the most well-known and influential. The Nephilim are mentioned in the Old Testament as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men, and that they were simply a separate group of people who were destroyed during the global flood. Or do you view it as a metaphor or an allegory? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm always interested in hearing other people's opinions and perspectives. They believe that the mention of the Nephilim in the text is a mistake or a misunderstanding, and that they should not be associated with the Tower of Babel narrative. I've done a few videos discussing who exactly the Nephilim were and why they were so corrupt and violent. Ultimately, the role of the Nephilim in the story of the Tower of Babel is a matter of interpretation, and there is no definitive answer. Some believe that the sons of God were fallen angels who mated with human women, while others believe that they were the descendants of Seth, the son of Adam and Eve. Regardless of their exact nature, the Bible describes the Nephilim as giants who were corrupt and violent, and that they were destroyed during the global flood. Some believe that the Nephilim were involved in the construction of the Tower of Babel, and that their presence was a contributing factor to the confusion of languages. They believe that the Nephilim were giants who were incredibly strong and skilled builders, and that they used their abilities to try to reach heaven. However, their efforts were thwarted when God confused their language and scattered them. This interpretation is supported by the fact that the Bible describes the Nephilim as being incredibly tall and powerful, and that they were ultimately destroyed by God. It has been interpreted in various ways throughout history, and has had a significant impact on Christian theology. Some Christians believe that the confusion of languages at the Tower of Babel was a direct result of human sin, and that it was an act of divine judgment. They believe that God created the world with only one language to demonstrate his unity and order, but that sin introduced division and chaos into the world. The confusion of languages is seen as a consequence of this sin, and a reminder of the need for repentance and faith in Jesus Christ. Others believe that the confusion of languages was not a punishment for sin, but rather an act of God's mercy. They believe that the confusion of languages prevented humanity from continuing to build the Tower of Babel and rebelling against God. By scattering the people and giving them different languages, God allowed them to continue to live and multiply, committing the ultimate sin of directly challenging him. However, secular scholars generally reject the literal truth of the Genesis account. Instead, most mainstream scholars view the story as an attempt to explain the diversity of languages and cultures among humans. In fact, it has been suggested that the story was created as a way to teach the importance of obedience to God and to warn against the dangers of pride and arrogance. However, others argue that the story serves as an explanation for the existence of multiple languages and cultures throughout the world and may not necessarily have been included in the text to explain the creation of languages. According to many theologians, the intent of the passage is to explain how different languages came into existence, rather than to say anything about the creation of humans. Many Christians also believe that the account of the Tower of Babel is a type of the fall of man, just as the Garden of Eden was a type of heaven. This is because humanity's decision to build a tower that reached to heaven was a rejection of God, his sovereignty. Much like the fall of man in the Garden of Eden was a rejection of God's authority. As they migrated from east to west, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. They began to build a city and a tower whose top would reach into the heavens. They used bricks for stones and tar for mortar. Well, some believe that the confusion of languages at the Tower of Babel led to the scattering of people across the face of the earth, which resulted in the formation of different nations, cultures, and civilization. This belief is supported by the fact that the Hebrew word for Babel means gate of the gods, or confused in English. Additionally, many cultures around the world have myths and legends about a time when all people were united and spoke a single language. For example, the ancient Greek philosopher Strabo wrote about a time when all people were gathered together in India and spoke the same language. But when they attempted to build a tower to reach the heavens, the gods became angry and confused their language, causing them to scatter and eventually form the various nations and cultures of the world. The Lord came down to see the tower which the children of man had built. If only they would build it, he said. Nothing will be impossible for them. He will not be able to accomplish. Come, let us go down, and they confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another's language. So the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. And thus the name of the city was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad on the face of all the earth. And if you'd like to support me directly, check out the links in the description down below. Alright, let's dive right in. So, what exactly is the Tower of Babel? The biblical account tells of a time before the division of mankind by language, implying that originally people all spoke the same language. The story goes on to tell of humanity's desire to reach heaven through a massive tower, which ultimately fails and results in the scattering of people across the earth and the introduction of different languages, hence the confusion at the end. This passage from Genesis seems to imply that all humans originated from one common ancestor. In other words, we are all related and are descended from Adam and Eve. The story also suggests that the human race was originally uncorrupted and lived in harmony until the development of sin and death. When the construction of the tower began, the people were united and speaking a single language. But as the project continued, their hearts grew wicked. God stopped the construction of the tower and confounded their language, causing them to be scattered around the earth. It is believed that this event took place in ancient Mesopotamia. Now here's where things get really interesting. As you probably already know, some religious leaders and theologians believe that the story of the Tower of Babel is a literal account, events that took place after the creation of Adam and Eve. But what does this all mean? What does the Tower of Babel mean for us today? There are several examples of this throughout history. In fact, there are many stories from various cultures that describe a similar event. I don't want to get too far off track here, but I do think it is important to discuss the Nephilim and how they tie in with the Tower of Babel. Others, however, believe that the Nephilim were not involved in the construction of the Tower of Babel. So what do you think? Do you believe that the story of the Tower of Babel is a literal account of events that took place after the creation of Adam and Eve? If you enjoyed this video, then check out some other videos that I've done on the net. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a blessed day, and I'll see you all next time.